Welcome to today's Old College Tribe podcast. Thanks for joining us. Really intriguing, fascinating episode today. A little bit scary, but some silver linings in there first. These new federal loan changes are going to have an unbelievable impact on college enrollment this year, and nobody's talking about it. So you heard it here first. Thanks for joining in, and come check out me and Peggy and the Old College Tribe podcast. Okay, welcome. The Dream Team's back, Peggy. 2 weeks in a row, right?
Yeah, 2 weeks in a row.
I don't know that we've strung two together in quite some time. So, so here we are in freaking July, if you can believe it. Just like
yesterday was a big day. We're going to talk about it. So
big day, 7-1 each year until further notice. But historically, we don't expect any changes here when the new federal loan rates take effect. So Peggy will kind of hit on exactly what those new changes are, and we got lots to talk about on the subject today. And I think really what will be some kind of radical changes in the near term and maybe the long term. So big things to hit on today. Important time of year and not your average bear year with these changes. So before we do that, I'm up on tunes this week, Peggy. The timing is good because this band is in town this week. Rosie and I will be going to see them live with some dear friends who you've met, actually, the Egan's. You know these guys.
Oh, yeah, they were great.
Yes. Name of the band is Goose. Okay, so kind of a wonky name, if you will.
I've heard of it because you've shared at least one song from them before. But
did I really?
Because of you.
All right. Well, maybe it's a different.
But it's okay.
Okay. Well, it's timely. I should have done my homework, but
I've yet to go look them up on Spotify, so I need to do that. So
here's a fun one. Start with Your Direction. Okay. Your Direction is a fun one. Born is a really nice one. And then let me give you Slow Ready. Slow Ready is the third one. I like to do my three. So these guys are a big time like jam band, but they also have beautiful voices. They're cut from the Grateful Dead Fish cloth. But
is it like a big venue that they play?
It's a fairly big venue. These guys are starting to get pretty popular. As a matter of fact, they just sold out the Madison Square Garden a couple weeks ago.
Nice.
So that speaks. Yeah, they're. I think pretty soon they'll be they're on a trajectory to be doing stadiums only, which is great for them. Always get sad as fans when they, you don't get to see the Boss play small venues, do you, Peggy? You got to go see them.
No, but I guess Meadowlands, whatever they call it now, I saw them, but the last couple times it's been smaller, like 17,000. I like that size.
There you go. All right. So without further ado, Peggy, why don't you just tell us, I think specifically and most importantly, I mean, if we work in some grad school loan stuff, that's fine. But I think, our audience is more focused on these undergraduate student loans. So the federal direct student loans, which is the federal student loan, which again, maybe you can give us another Cliff Notes version of what that is, and then the Parent Plus loan, and then of course rates and repayment terms. We'll start there, right? What changed now, basically?
So every year, as Matt said, this happens. So July 1, for all loans dispersed from July 1, 2026 through June 30th of next year, the federal loans have fixed rates, which is a good thing. It locks it in so you know what you're going to be paying. You don't have that interest rate risk. And so they always reset. They reset off the 10-year Treasury note. So the bummer of this year is you might be thinking, well, these rates are going to go down because I know the Federal Reserve cut rates a couple times. Well, the Treasury notes were up a little. The yield was up. So no, it went up a little bit. So and I'm going to explain what these two things are, but the federal direct student loans that your child is eligible for, all you do is submit that FAFSA, which at CAP, we tell everybody to do that. The rate for this coming school year is 6.52%. Fixed rate for the life of the loan. It went up just a little bit, very little, but it did go up a little. So that's for that loan. Then there's the Parent Plus loan that you probably see in the media. It's just called Plus loan. We like to still call it a Parent Plus loan because it actually is the parent, one parent going online and being approved pretty easily for, and we'll talk through that. That interest rate is much higher. The new interest rate for that for the next year is 9.07%. So very high interest rate. And on top of it, loans can have what's called an origination fee. So it's just a fee that comes off before you get that disbursement. And it's high for the Parent Plus loan. It always has been. It's like I'm going to just round to 4.25. Okay.
Yep.
So it's about 4.25. It's a kick in the butt
Mhm.
as you're getting your money basically from the federal government. Whereas, just as point of comparison, the federal direct student loans, it's a little bit over 1%. That's a reasonable origination fee. Okay. So those are the two federal places to go for undergraduate money. So let me just take a minute because there's tons of confusion around the federal direct student loan. So let's just talk about that. So there's two versions of it. There's a subsidized version and there's an unsubsidized version. So if your family, and we've talked about this a lot on our podcast, has financial need, your child will be awarded what's called the subsidized version. That means there's no interest on that debt until starts accruing 6 months after graduation. So it's a no-brainer. Basically, the government is paying that interest. So why not take it, even if you can pay the bill, right? Keep the money elsewhere and earn on it. So that's the subsidized version. Then there's always an unsubsidized version, same exact loan, but it's a normal loan. As it's dispersed, interest starts accruing. So there's caps on this. So the government says each student can get $27,000 of this loan for all 4 years. There's a few instances where they can get another 4,000 if they're independent or you get denied as a parent on the Parent Plus loan. But basically for most kids it's 27,000. And then there's caps every year on that. We don't need to go into all those little caps, but it's 19,000 of subsidized is the max over 4 years, and then an extra 8 of unsubsidized. So hopefully that makes sense to everybody. Bill Gates's kids can get unsubsidized student loans as long as he submits the FAFSA with his kids. So anybody can get that. The subsidized, you have to have need. In my mind, I always say I always say student loans, and I put up my little quotes because most loans out there that they call student loans are not student loans. Parents, aunts, grandparents are co-signing. This one, all under your kid's social security number. No, you can pay it off, but you are not, as a parent, obligated in any way. It's a good thing. Your child's starting to build a credit history. There's a lot of good things about it, but it truly is their debt that will stay with them forever and ever and not you. So that's the federal direct. Do you want to chime in on that anywhere before I kind of talk through the parent?
I don't think so. And I think you said it right, but again, you did, but I'll just triple
You
down.
like to repeat, so go
I
ahead
do
and
like to
double down.
repeat, and I like to pull out what I think are the headlines, and especially ones that are, if people are hearing it for the first time, are a little bit surprising. Like, you're telling me I should take out this loan even if I don't need my kid to borrow? And yes is the answer, right? Again, at a minimum, just to help your kid establish credit. It's a nice little perk, smart strategy to do. Again, if you need to borrow, that's where we tell every family to start. Peg just said it. It's the only true student loan. But again, I think it's important for people to hear, even if you don't need it, take advantage of it. It's a smart thing to do.
Yeah, yeah. And basically, if you have a child who's a sophomore in college and you're like, "Oh, I haven't taken it," you can start taking it. It's use it or lose it, so you can't go back and ask for the freshman and sophomore year allotment, but you can always get it. And if you get an award letter, and I'm sure you've seen this, Matt, where people will say, "Well, Peg, they didn't put a loan on it." I'm like, "Call financial aid." If you submitted that FAFSA, you can get the full unsubsidized student loan. So that helps a lot of people
A
fill
good point, and let
gaps,
me just
right?
add to that, Peggy, is that because a lot of these schools that say they are no quote unquote no loan schools, right? And they tend to be the schools with the really low admissions rates, right? And they that can be really generous with financial aid. And the spirit of those programs are obviously really good. No loans is great, but a lot of families that get accepted into these colleges still need to borrow money,
Mhm.
and that's the best place to start. So they have to go
Right.
out of their way to request that money that they're entitled to, because it's not going to be given to them automatically like it is in most colleges.
Yep. Yep. So just, yeah, make a note of that. Okay. So then the other federal loan where there's been significant changes that Matt's going to get into is what I said before, the Parent Plus loan, higher interest rate, higher origination fee. So this is the flip side. This is one parent. So if you're married, divorced, doesn't matter. It's one parent going on studentaid.gov and applying for this puppy. It's not everybody gets approved, but it's way easier to be approved for this loan than it is in the private market. Your credit score does not need to be exemplary to be approved. And honestly, I've had situations, and I'm sure you've seen it, Matt, where I'm floored, that they've approved families. I'll send some families there hoping they get denied so that their child will get a little bit more of the federal direct loan, and they get approved. So I have not liked this loan for years. And so the changes that Matt's going to talk about, I'm not really sad about, but we'll talk through that. But again, it's your loan. If you have a handshake agreement, written agreement with your kid that they're responsible, that's nice, but it doesn't mean anything, right? You are the only one responsible. And as a parent, if you're divorced and hey, we'll split it, that's not what's on paper. So just realize that's how it works. Higher interest rate, and that will be available every year. And again, to what we were talking about these financial aid award letters, when your child gets in and they get their financial package, it will be on there. Colleges love to put it on there because it lowers that bottom line and it's not money out of their pocket. And a lot of people see it and they look at the bottom line and they're like, oh, that's not so bad. Sometimes it even says zero,
Right.
and it's not zero. It's a lot of loan. So, but that's how that loan works. They're both federal. So you have the federal nice little specs to it. But Matt's going to share now. There's some significant changes to the Parent Plus loan that have hit now.
Yeah, and that to that point, right? The historically, number one, or a couple things to talk about, when it comes to kind of the history of the plus loan is number one, it has by far the biggest market share in terms of parents that are borrowing money to send their kids to college. The plus loan, this federal program, it by far has the biggest market share compared to the state options, compared to the private lenders like Sallie Mae, College Ave, SoFi. These types of options, or
So why is that? Why don't you tell everybody why that is?
well, for a few reasons. You just hit one of them, which is a lot of these colleges include it in their financial aid award letter, and it's presented to these families like, if you need to borrow money, this is how you do it, right? It's almost like presented as this is your only option. It really is. And people assume this is from the college that we're attending. Okay, I have a gap to borrow, use the federal program. End of story, right? The other big reason, and probably the biggest reason, is, again, you hit on this, it's the easiest loan to qualify for. So if I'm a family that doesn't have a very robust credit score, I might get denied in the private market. I might get denied state options, or if I do get them, I have a 15% loan, right? It's just cost prohibitive that even when we hear this, plus loan interest rate of 9% plus and 4% origination fee, so effectively 10%, that's better than 15%, right? If I have a lousy credit score or not a very competitive credit score. Another thing that I'll add there is that it used to be some of these, financial aid offices, and I don't know, Peg, maybe this was about a decade ago, maybe probably even longer, where private lenders were compensating financial aid counselors at colleges for recommending their loans, right? And then that practice had to go away, was found to be, I don't know if it was maybe illegal.
Obvious reasons.
Yeah. Right. But the federal government was not a part of that. So if, a family calls a financial aid office or goes on a college's financial aid website, colleges are more comfortable kind of leading with that plus loan, the federal government option. Then they don't even have to worry about, okay, we're not recommending Sallie Mae versus Citizens versus whatever it happens to be. So, I think, would you add any other reasons? Those are for me kind of the big.
Well, the main reason, which is going to lead really well to what you're going to delve into now, is they could just a family could say, "Well, we haven't been able to save, and my child got the federal direct loan. We don't have any money.
Mhm.
Oh, you're gonna give me all of it? Great." Right? And so that's what's changing that you're gonna dig into. It was unlimited what the
Mhm.
colleges could put on there to and I mean, to the tune of $70,000, 80,
True.
whatever that
Yeah.
gap was, and so people would just sign the line because it was how they could make it happen for their child and not really think about affordability and how am I gonna pay this off,
And
right?
when we talk about the masses, you hear me and Peggy almost every week or anybody on here or any presentation we give, we always talk about our buying processes backwards. We shop first and then we buy and then we figure out how we're going to pay for it, right? That's how the masses go through this. So the majority of families are just figuring out like, "Oh my god, I got to come up with $80,000 in 6 weeks because I just or 4 weeks because I just got my bill." I mean, again, a lot of people that listen to us, Peggy, are the people that are trying to get ahead of this, so they can't
Yeah,
relate, and
I'm
they're
I'm
going
hoping I'm
yeah,
hoping that we're
right,
helping people.
but we just know, and all the data shows, and the end result, and the, massive debt that we have, as a country, shows that this is how most people go through the process, and I gotta come up with, again, $50,000 for the fall semester in 4 weeks. What do I do? Okay, plus loan, boom, there we go. Well,
Yeah.
that's not happening anymore, okay? And I cannot believe that more people are not talking about this. I cannot believe I wish I had a louder megaphone because we are going to see something that, in my opinion, we have not seen ever ever in this college admissions process because what's going to happen because now the plus loan is capped at $20,000. That's the most that a family can borrow in a year and 65,000 over the total of 4 years. So if I borrow 20,000 freshman, sophomore, junior year, I can only borrow 5,000 for my student's senior year. Okay. So there is going to be a meaningful percentage, I think, especially of the class of 2026 or 2030, right? College graduates that are going to get their bill now ish. Okay. And they're going to have to come up with, you know, 30, $40,000, okay, in short order here, okay, in the next month, 6, 8 weeks, they're not going to be eligible for private loans because their credit isn't good enough, right? They're not going to be eligible for state programs. And the estimates, there was a study that just came out. The estimates are that 40% of parents that need to borrow money to send their kids from college are only going to be eligible for the plus loan. That percentage, which is again, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of people here,
Yeah,
right?
that's mind blowing. Yep.
And that percentage goes up to 60% when we're talking about families that are Pell eligible. So for families with a lower income, less resources, right? 60% of this group is only going to be eligible for the plus loan. So unbeknownst to them, because again, this just has not been getting enough publicity. And it's been a frustrating thing for us where we're trying to be like, why isn't anybody listening? Right.
Yeah, no, I
They're
was just telling you that I was driving, right? I told you that yesterday, and they were like, they just did a little snippet. It was like a 2 minute or 90 second, and they mentioned, the grad loads and this, and I'm like, they didn't even mention it. Like that's the key thing that all of you need to know and to hear, with kids going to college soon or
so for
kids
these
in college.
So if a family has to come up with $30,000 next year, which we all know is not an outrageous amount, right? I'm a Massachusetts resident. If I don't get financial aid, UMass is going to be close to 45 next year, right? So, this is not a huge number anymore, as crazy as that is to say. I get denied in the private sector. I get denied state options. I can only borrow through the plus loan. Hopefully I get it. But guess what? I can only borrow $20,000 and I don't have $10,000. I can't cash flow $10,000. My kid can't go to that school. So I know we are going to see this it's going to be on the cover of the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal, and it's going to be on CNN. We're going to see that there is going to be this massive percentage of college bound students that are not going to be able to attend the college that they put the deposit down on May 1st or before, right? And they're either going to have to go to community college or find a more affordable option, or take a semester off or a year off. This in the downstream impact here is gonna be massive, right? Well, these colleges are gonna feel that pain big time,
Yeah, they
right?
might pony up, and some schools already have their own loan programs. It'll be interesting to see the magnitude of this because
Yeah.
they don't want kids saying or parents saying, "Oh, we're not coming because we can't afford it. We can't get the funds," you know? They don't want
I'm
that.
really interested, Peggy. I'm thinking that exact same thing, and like, this is unfair to pick on Syracuse, but they just are front of mind, and their chancellor just wrote that, um, penned that letter. What was it? Maybe a month ago. That basically business is not great right now. They're not happy
Yeah.
with their yields. We know how amazing school, right? We love it. I love it for a ton of reasons, but they're wild. They're hugely expensive, and I think that they again that's are just gonna they among many, 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 probably most schools, you think your yields aren't great right now? Let's see what happens in a couple of weeks, right? And I
Yep.
don't wish that for them, and I especially don't wish it for the families, right? I mean, the because think about this, when this, it's less, I don't know, it's easier to wrap our arms around when we think about just the macro numbers, but for these actual families, these kids that work their ass off to get into this college, they're so excited. They got the
Well, you're emotionally there. The whole
yeah,
family's
you're there.
emotionally
You got
there.
the whole family's got their hoodies. We got the sticker on the car. We've been to accepted students day. We're talking to our roommate already. We're
Yep.
picturing our future, and you're going to tell me at the freaking buzzer that I can't go there? Like, there's going to be some shitty stories. There really is, and I'm not looking forward to that at all. And in terms of what can we do about it today, right now, there's a couple things. And again, if you pay attention to us, you hear us. You're probably annoyed about hearing from us, but we consider it our obligation. You have to find out now if you have to borrow more than $20,000. Okay, especially you have to find out now. Is it even a possibility for me to borrow in the private sector? What do my rates and repayment terms look like? Can I borrow through a state option? What do my rates and repayment terms look like? Because again, if not, if we're denied those options, we really need to start scrambling and potentially think of one of these less desirable plan Bs. But Peggy, you tease this too, and I'm going to be really interested to see what these colleges do. It We might see appeals later than we've ever seen them, right? Because
Yep.
we might see
Yep.
these families come back and say, I got denied every loan. Can only borrow $20,000 through the plus loan. I'm $10,000 short. Do you want me in that bed for $10,000 less? Or do you want me to rescind?
Yep. Yep.
I mean, I think some of these colleges, and it's not like there's an unlimited budget, but I think they're gonna have to play, "Let's make a deal." Um,
Yeah, and I'm hoping that they and for their sake, they know this dynamic and they've thought of this, especially the schools that aren't sitting on billions and billions and
yes.
millions of dollars in an endowment. They're the ones that are having a hard time now anyways, but even the Syracuses of the world that have a nicer, they don't have a Harvard endowment, but they have a decent endowment. It's a rough time for them, and this is something that I really hope the head of financial aid at these offices has thought through and strategized because yeah, it's a real thing. Once we finish this piece, then I just want to because there's probably people listening that have kids in college that might be like, "Oh my god." So we'll
Go
talk about that. Yeah.
go ahead and hit that now.
Yeah,
If it
yeah. So if you have a child in school and you've already done either a federal direct student loan or the Parent Plus loan, it doesn't have to be the Parent Plus loan, it could be the federal direct. You are grandfathered. So you are grandfathered into the old world um, that says you still have that unlimited cap. As a financial planner, I would still tell you to be prudent about using that, but you are not under this 65,000 aggregate limit. So keep that in mind. If your child's already in school, you are grandfathered. Because I know there's some people probably listening, but we have people that have younger kids. So you know this now. This is gonna be your world. So when you're doing your planning and understanding all of this, realize that that at least right now from the OBBB, the act that Trump passed, it's a $65,000 max. As we know, things can change in the government and regulations, but that's the reality. But you are grandfathered, even if your child just took the federal direct loans. you're good with the old caps. So,
Yeah, and I hope this is probably being too optimistic in the short term. Maybe in the medium and long term we get here, but what we try to do with every family we get in front of, and we try to be really intentional in the software, right? And my cap around this is that again, our dream world, or at least how we coach it, before you even apply to a school, if you want to take it one step further, before you even go tour a campus,
yep.
see what this is gonna cost you over the course of 4 years minus your budget, right? Versus to see what that 4-year delta is gonna be, and of course, on a 1-year, as you're gonna be staring at freshman year the most, and to see how much you're gonna have to borrow, because I hope, Peggy, one well, let's kind of transition. I love this. I'm stealing this phrase from somebody, and I don't know who deserves the credit, but it's what could go right, right? What could go right here? Because I think there's a couple things. Because number one, we would love to see, and this is something we're always talking about, that both the student, the parent, and the college, okay, and probably the lender fits in here somewhere, signs off on this commitment, right? Even before you put your deposit slip in, right? Like, you have an idea of like, okay, this is how much I'm going to have to borrow. Are all parties that are involved with this investment can stare at this and say, this is a reasonable expectation that we all get ROI here, right? Because the colleges want these kids to graduate. The colleges don't want, it's not awesome for them when a family takes on this insurmountable amount of debt from their institution. That's not a win, right? For them. So like, in a lot of ways, our incentives are aligned here. But if we can get everybody in the beginning to say, yes, this works, or no, this stinks because we really like the idea of this college, but they're not great with financial aid. Our resources are what they are, and whatever, right? So that concept we kind of have in our front and center. That's as long as we've been doing this, but it's like it needs to be implemented system wide, right? Um, that's
And
one.
the
The next,
colleges, that's another thing that you say the colleges care, and they have to care more now. There's accountability stuff in OBBB too, where if they're graduating kids with tons of debt and kids that can't get job, like they could lose some federal funding. So there is accountability, so they can't just go, hoo, not my problem. I just got all this net revenue. So they, even though I think a lot of them inherently do care, now they're being forced to care at another level because of the legislation as well.
which is a huge positive, right? Now, again, I think some of the
Yep.
language around that is still being flushed out and
Right,
exact.
right. It's still being interpreted. Yeah.
But the spirit of it is like moving in the right direction. We have good inertia here with holding, again, these other entities accountable for this massive investment, right? And the big one being the colleges specifically. The other thing here is that, again, in terms of what could go right when we look at medium and long term, and I think this is a huge motivator in the federal government putting caps on this, it could drive prices down. And a lot of when you kind of stare at this from a macroeconomics perspective, it should, because the colleges are no longer getting a blank check. They no longer know that, like, hey, even if this family has no business borrowing $80,000 a year, guess what? They're still going to do it. And the federal government's still going to write them that check for $80,000, which is going to come directly to us. What do we care, basically, right? Like, and again, I'm tongue in cheek a little bit there, because as we were just saying, I think by and large they do care, but you know what I mean? The money's coming. So what is their incentive to charge less? What is their incentive to give more financial aid and scholarships, right? They know the blank check is coming. It's not coming anymore. It's going away. So colleges are going to have to be way more intentional with how they, price their institution, with how they give out aid, with how they, and again, Peggy, I have a feeling a lot of these colleges are going to learn the hard way this year, and they're not going to want to be in that position next year. They're going to have to proactively get in front of this, because I have to imagine we're not in these rooms, but I have to imagine that for this incoming class 2026 high school graduates, most of these colleges are staring at a percentage of them going, oh man, I hope they get approved for a private loan, basically, right? We don't know
Yep.
their credit
Yep.
score,
Yep. Yep.
but we know their resources, we know their income, we know how much they're going to have to come up with to go to our institution. They're going to have to borrow that from somewhere they're crossing their fingers that they get approved for a private student loan, right? I just have to
Yeah.
imagine there's a scary group that they're circling at each school.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't gonna be an immediate thing, but it'll take a little time, and it won't affect all colleges the same. It just won't. Colleges that have massive endowments, it won't be an issue, and if somebody says I can't come at the last minute, they've got a wait list, they can fill their class, no problem. So it depends on the college, and to your point, Matt, like we'll see how the dust falls this year, and then they should be responding accordingly for their bottom lines and how is this gonna work, and yeah, because cutting prices doesn't always work for every school, so there's a lot of moving pieces. It'll be interesting to see how they handle this, and being a planner, if I were in one of these universities at that level, that would have been the first thing that hit my mind, so I'm sure a lot of them, this has been maybe keeping them up at night, honestly, ever since this came through, and they're gonna have to figure it out, so we'll see.
Yeah,
It'll be interesting to see.
and look at one last kind of hopefully maybe on to end on a positive note here is that, and again, what could go right? Like, I think most of us would agree that this is an imperfect system, higher education in the United States. So any disruption hopefully is a positive. And again, it's not going to come without its short-term pain for basically all parties involved. But I think it's a positive that we have some parties here, specifically the Department of Education, saying like, we're going to institute some meaningful change. Here's our best guess at this very hard problem to solve, right? Like let's be clear, it's not like we're sitting here with the easy solution, right? This is a hard problem to solve, but I appreciate folks that care about this trying to make some best guesses here of like, here's what we think can move us.
Yeah,
It'll be
yeah,
a
I'm
lot.
not against these caps, and as Matt said earlier, my biggest takeaway today, like, take the time if you have a high school child, like, start thinking about this.
Yeah.
Don't go, you can go wander campuses because 'cause you're on vacation and there's a campus nearby, that's all good, but intentional, "I might go here," don't even do that until you've done your work. You can go to mycap.collegeapro.com, we have a free version of our software. Understand how these colleges do this, and to Matt's point, we're gonna show you a one-year view. You could just multiply it by 4 in your head. It might be better than that for some families and worse, depending on if you have crossover years in the school, but you're way ahead of the game. You're in the game at that point, and you're understanding how it's honestly the crazy world of financial aid works, because you just don't wanna drift through this. You're gonna be well into 6 figures in debt, most families, and that hits hard. That hits hard for younger kids. It hits hard for retirement. It's not a good scene, and it is avoidable, but you just got to take that step. Start getting in the know. Get help if it's something that's just too much for you. That's my takeaway. All this stuff. If you're right there, take there might be some hard conversations in your family, but at least even if this is new news to you, I feel good that Matt and I are informing you in a very in-depth way so that you can say, "Oh, okay, what do we do now?" Take a deep breath and go forward.
And we'll put this in the show notes too, but our kind of borrowing toolkit, which is all things of like, okay, I need to borrow money for college. What, give me some direction. And I think we do a great job, and our marketing team did a great job just spoon feeding you exactly like go here, here, and here, and that's how you find the answers that you're looking for. So we'll put that in the show notes as well. So thank you as
All
always,
right,
Peggy.
well,
And,
yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Matt.
happy 4th. Go America.
Yeah,
USA.
yeah, yeah. Happy 250th birthday. Woohoo. Everybody have a great day, and happy July, and onward and upward, right? That's all we can do.
All right, Peggy. We'll see you soon, buddy.
See you next time.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of Old College Tribe Podcast. Please like us. Please follow us. If you learned anything here, tell your friends, tell your family, share it with your neighbors, share it with next year's rising high school seniors, and help us help you make college more affordable. I'm Matt Carpenter, your host. I was joined today by Peggy Keough, the fairy godmother of financial aid, and this episode was produced and edited by our very own I Am Masood. Thank you.